Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cyclone Insider Show. I am Travis Hines. He is Eugene Rapay of the Des Moines Register. We cover Iowa State sports, and we're going to talk about them today on this Cyclone Insider Show. Eugene, what's up, man?
Oh, man, so much. It never stops, Travis.
Yeah, another eventful week for Iowa State football. Maybe not quite as eventful as last week where we had the basketball schedules dropping, the injury news to Taman Lipsey. But certainly plenty to discuss today about Iowa State football. Let's start with the big news, which is for the second straight week, we're talking about an Iowa State cornerback being out for the year with an ACL injury. This time it is Jontez Williams joining Jeremiah Cooper on the mend. Jontez suffered the injury late in the game Saturday against Arizona. Iowa State now down two starting corners in a secondary that has played pretty well this season, but is still, I think, one of the position groups that we don't know a ton about because I don't think they've been tested in the way that they are going to be tested, both in the regular season and potentially beyond. So I don't think, Eugene, have like a full understanding of the impact that this is going to have. But like I wrote today, you're down two of your starting corners. Like, however you want to look at it, it ain't good.
No, not good at all, especially when you lose two all Big 12 caliber cornerbacks and Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams. Having them go down in 5 days apart with season-ending knee injuries. Not a fantastic position to be in, especially when you look at who's next. I mean, Trey Bell, fortunately for Iowa State, had been kind of emerging in the last couple of games. But then even after that, Quinton Taylor Jr. is a guy that they're high on, but while he's been playing more, he hasn't really proven himself yet. And then looking even deeper in the depth chart, is it David Coffey? Is it Benny Nagoye? I mean, both another couple of guys who just haven't really gotten the amount of game day reps you'd like to see before you feel somewhat comfortable.
Before we talk about the on-the-field issues going into this weekend and beyond, I think it's worthwhile to discuss, and you had a pretty I thought it was strong. You thought it was lukewarm take on Iowa State leaving its starters in the game late against Arizona up by, 23? 3 scores anyway. Why don't you rehash that take for anybody who missed it on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that. I still don't think it's that wild. I mean, when you have a 3-touchdown lead, why are your starters in for as late as they are? When you look at Jontez Williams, when his injury occurred, it was with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, game already in hand, 5-0 already in hand. You kind of risk having your starters out late, and I think a lot of people thought that. I mean, even on the other side of the ball, Rocco Beck, after getting checked for a concussion, was still in there late, and they're running a quarterback sweep, and he gets hit hard. You got to think, like, why were the starters in for that late? I've heard a couple of theories, but overall, was it worth it? And now here we are down 2 starting cornerbacks, especially Jontez Williams, with just how well he's been playing this year. Devastating news for Iowa State.
Yeah, I don't think there's a good defense of why you need starters in that situation. I think it really comes down to having watched Campbell for 10 years. He definitely leans on leaving those guys in longer than I think your average fan. And I don't know about your average coach, but I would say most coaches would. Like, he leans, like, if it's a spectrum or a continuum, he is much further on aggressiveness in terms of leaving players in longer than shorter when you're up big late. And that's obviously, like, there's I wrote about the tight ends on how they throw it to the tight end so much because Campbell wanted to catch passes in high school. Like, it's not going to surprise me if we were to find out that there was some crazy comeback that Campbell was on the wrong side of one time a million years ago and now leaves the starters in. Because I don't think, like, when you're up 3 scores that late, things have to go very, very badly, like almost comically badly for you to lose the game. And now it costs you a player. And, like, I'm not going to kill Campbell for it because, like, I don't think it was wholly egregious. Like, I think, like, the guys their starters probably should have been out of the game, but I don't think it's like a coaching malpractice. I think it's a far end on the continuum decision, but obviously it hurt him here. And, like, you brought up the Beck one. I think you and I were standing on the sideline together watching that when they called the quarterback keeper, and both of us just went, ooh, when he got hit. Like, you're just taking a risk. And, like, the question is, what risk is bigger, that a player is going to get hurt or that the game is going to tighten? Like, where you're talking about touchdown, onside field goal, touchdown before you have to get – or onside kick, onside field goal. Jesus. Touchdown, onside kick recovery, touchdown, and then you're in a one-score game. Like, all those things have to happen, and it's just – I don't think that's likely to happen in 7 minutes of football, especially when you can just run the ball offensively. Like, you're going to put your starters in on the hands team. So I'm agreeing with you. Like, I think – be interesting to see. Like, it's hard to get Campbell to talk much about these things introspectively during the season, but I do wonder, like, if there's going to be a self-evaluation here to be like, we probably need to be a little bit better about limiting our exposure when we don't need to.
Yeah, and even after that Arizona game, he was asked about how do you distribute or when do you decide to pull starters, this and that, and he was kind of dodgy about the question, didn't really give a straightforward answer, but I'm sure at some point down the line, maybe this is one that he looks back at, maybe with regret. We'll never know for sure. But just even another thing too, like you said, the amount of things that would have had to happen to blow that game, absolutely comical, impossible. You couldn't even do it on college football 25, 26 if you even tried. Like, that type of comeback would have just been absolutely almost or impossible. One theory that I did hear was that they wanted to experiment with rotations. You get some of the new guys in, seeing how they rotate with Johnson Williams in a non-high risk factor or a non-high risk environment. So, even with that, I mean, maybe you can kind of see the vision, but at the same time, 3 minutes ago, what are we, why are they still out there?
Yeah. But I think too, like, in Campbell's defense, and like, this is, I think you could make this argument in both ways. But like an ACL tear, like, that's just as likely to happen with 3 minutes to go as it is in practice on Wednesday, right? Like, that's a non-contact injury. Like, the more egregious one, I think, is probably Rocco after going into the medical tent. Not only to have him in the game, but to go run him. It's like, man, like, there you are taking on additional risk that I think is probably overstated with John Tez because he got hurt. Like, it's a non-contact injury, right? Like, that can just happen. Now, it wouldn't have happened if he wouldn't have been on the field, but when you're talking about the totality of decisions that Campbell's got to make about practice, game reps, and the whole deal, like, I don't know that there's any difference between a game rep and a practice rep for an ACL injury, at least substantive enough to matter in decision making. But again, like, I would have had the starters out of the game if I were Matt there. And however it happened, Iowa State is now down its 2 starting corners. And you talked about Trey Bell and Quentin Taylor Jr. And, like, that's tough enough, right? Like, as good as they may or may not be, or as they may be. Like, I think, like, Campbell loves Trey Bell, has been talking him up for weeks. I think they're really high on Quentin Taylor Jr. Like, I think they think that those are good players capable of contributing in the Big 12. We'll take their word at it until we see different. To me, the bigger issue here is not Trey Bell and Quentin Taylor Jr. It's the unknown beyond those guys, because as we saw with linebacker last year, and as just common sense will tell you, like, Trey Bell and Quentin Taylor Jr. aren't going to play the whole game. Like, there is going to be 2, 3, 4 other corners that see reps on Saturday at Cincinnati. And now you're talking about the first guy off the bench is, by Iowa State's own admission in the way they play players, their 5th best corner, because you're down 2 and you start 2 others. Like, so you're starting your 3rd and 4th best corner, and the first guy off the bench is your 5th corner. The second guy is your 6th, like, going down the line. And I guarantee you, Cincinnati, their offensive coordinator, their staff up in the booth, is going to have their binoculars out. They're going to be watching the substitution patterns. And the first thing that's going to go into Brendan Sorsby's helmet radio is going to be, hey, you've got the 5th string cornerback. You've got the 6th string quarterback out there. Like, if you've got a chance, put them to the test. And that is where I think Iowa State's going to get in trouble, potentially, because it only takes one mistake at corner for 6 points to be on the board. And it only takes 2, 3, or 4 mistakes over the course of 60 minutes of football to just lose the game, right? Like, that's all it takes at that position, because it's so high risk, high reward when you're talking about wide receivers that can stretch the field. And I think that is the biggest issue for Iowa State. It's not the first 2 guys on the field on Saturday. It'll be the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th guys potentially where things can get dicey.
No doubt. And you have Jeremiah Cooper before the season even started moving from safety to corner. What does that even say? What does that say? What does that say about the other guys that you've been working on? And especially for Cooper to make that position change with 2 weeks to go before the season opener against K-State.
If we believe that.
If we believe that. Yeah, you're right.
But you don't move an All-American safety to corner unless you feel like you really need to, right? Like the bottom line there. Like, I think Jeremiah's future is probably at corner in the NFL, so you're helping him out. But like Campbell's not going to like do a guy an NFL favor if it costs the team. He's moving him there because they thought it was the best thing for the team.
And looking even beyond cornerback, now you look at the secondary overall. Does that make Jamison Patton the elder statesman? Like, is he the most experienced guy now in that secondary? And then after that, Tayshaun James, a redshirt sophomore. Like, I'm curious to see. They can scheme it up however they want to scheme it, but you lose that veteran element, you lose that veteran savviness. What happens now, or how are they going to be able to mask when the 5th or 6th string cornerback is in? What are they gonna draw up to kind of minimize the damage there? I mean, you saw linebacker last year, at least you had the safeties come in and help out a little bit. You had the secondary kind of behind them, but you think back to that K-State game where they just gave up a couple of home run plays because you had inexperienced safeties giving up or biting on routes or biting on moves and then just getting beat over the top. Now, will Jamison Patton, he's been playing very well, but will he be able to help out when, David Coffey stumbles a little bit, or if a guy like Benny Nagoye, who has only played 59 snaps overall, 52 of them being special teams, so only 7 on defense in game, like would they be able to kind of mask that or help cover that up?
Yeah, and I think that brings up 2 interesting points. Number one, like the safeties are going to probably at minimum feel like they have to do more. And if guys start feeling like they have to do more, they start trying to do more, which a lot of times mean they're not doing what they're supposed to do, right? And at the safety position, it's not different than the corner. If you're trying to do too much or you get out of position because you feel like you have to help, that leaves something open that is not supposed to be open, that your rest of your teammates don't know is open, and that the defensive coordinator hasn't schemed to be open. And I think that is the natural temptation, and it comes from a good place, obviously, with players trying to pick up the slack. But you do worry about when that starts happening, the cohesiveness of the defense can take a real hit. And the other question is, does Iowa State, in terms of scheme alignment, have to make adjustments for those corners, or does it have to make a scheme adjustment in terms of strategy? Like, okay, we can't, does John Haycock have to say we cannot cover for 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds? We got to get to the quarterback faster. So now are you blitzing those corners? Are you blitzing safeties? Are you sending linebackers? Are you sending 5 and 6 guys? Are you doing 0 blitzes? Like, to where you're really trying to put pressure on the quarterback so those corners and those safeties have to defend for less time. But if they beat those blitzes, you're in trouble, right? Like in terms of them moving the ball down the field and then potentially hitting the home run play too. And I think that is, I wrote it today as like the adjustment can't be an overcorrection. And like that'll be, I think, a fine line for Iowa State to walk. I do think, and you tell me what you think of this, but I do think after 10 years, I tend to say like John Haycock will figure out the schematic part. Like there's only so much they can do with the personnel. Like if guys are getting beat in coverage, guys are getting beat in coverage. But it does feel like John has the track record, and I'm sure Matt's trust to like figure this out in terms of how to maximize scheme and play calls to mask some of this, to cover for some of this, or to mitigate some of this. But all of those come with risk. Like every choice comes with a downside. And I think when you're talking about losing your 2 starting corners, your choices become tougher and your downsides become more significant.
Yeah, I would agree with that take. I mean, I haven't been around Iowa State as long, but just based on last year, when you have that many injuries to deal with on the defensive side, let alone even just the linebackers, even beyond linebackers. I mean, you had Verdon and you had Freeler both dealing with the on and off elements here and there. But for Haycock to have that kind of year, for Iowa State to have that kind of year with Haycock's help, I mean, I have confidence in his ability to draw something up or scheme something up. Now, the execution of it, we'll see. Like you said, sometimes when you feel like you have to be the hero or you have to over-adjust or overcompensate, that can lead to some wild card plays. And in this game, all you need to do is just be a second off or a couple of inches away, and that can just blow something completely open for the opposition. So based on that, I mean, we'll have to see how exactly they respond against Cincinnati and what those substitution patterns will be. I'm very curious. Now we get to maybe see what a Benny Nagoye, for the conversion project that they've been talking about. He's coming along well, quote unquote. Now we'll have to see it live in action. Same with David Coffey, who's another younger corner that they're high on, and Quentin Taylor Jr., who they've been talking about since fall camp or spring ball rather. So we'll see how they handle all of that.
Yeah, and obviously we have focused so far on the bad news for Iowa State this week, but at the end of the day, they're 5-0, 2-0, going into a winnable road game here. And I think when you're talking about the issues on defense, we talked about the adjustments that they can make there. But I do think the offense is part of this equation too. And I think they got incredibly good signs and news on Saturday about what that offense potentially could do that we weren't sure about. And I think Chase Sowell's emergence as that deep threat, as that dynamic wide receiver. Now, it was in one game, but like that looked a lot like the guy that they talked about going back to spring and fall that they thought that they were getting with Chase Sowell. So I do think it is important to note that while the defense might have issues, the offense can do two things. They can take the air out of the ball and slow possessions, or they can be like, we got to score 49 points. And if Chase Sowell can give them that kind of deep route, like, did you watch, was it the Sunday night game or the Sunday afternoon game? Like the Kansas City Chiefs offense has looked like dog poo for most of the year. You add Xavier Worthy into there, and it's like, oh my God, the Chiefs are back. So like, this is like Xavier Worthy is not the same thing as Chase Sowell, but it like shows you what a dynamic wide receiver can do to change the entire scope of an offense. And we'll see if eventually Chase Sowell can get there. But like, I thought Saturday was a huge sign that he was on his way there. And as we talked all offseason long, if you remember back to Jaden Higgins, it took him 3, 4, 5 games to really become Jaden Higgins. And here we are now 5 games in, and Chase Sowell at least has 1 game under his belt as a game-changing wide receiver, and like couldn't have come soon enough for Iowa State.
Yeah, 4 catches for 150-plus yards to have that kind of game. And to know that this guy hasn't even hit his full stride yet, that's got to be a promising sign for Iowa State fans. That's got to be something you got to look forward to. And also just another weapon. We'd seen Brett Eskildson, we'd see Dom Overby have their moments, but now you have Xavier Townsend starting to come along, and now Chase Sowell with that kind of game. That's a big target with some speed, too. I was impressed with when he caught that slant pass and then took it for 52 yards. Like, this guy has some burst to him as well. He's not just a big hulking target or a guy that, can high point a ball or win those one-on-ones. He can take off, too, if he gets to that space. So to have that kind of weapon now for the Iowa State offense, great to have. I mean, it can't be understated, especially with the tight ends killing it. The wide receivers, you like what they'd seen, so you like what you saw from them so far. But now when your 2 top wide receiver signings from the transfer portal are now starting to get involved and become game changers, now that really opens up that side of the ball as well.
And I think, too, like just beyond the stats, the way he was able to get open and catch some contested balls, like the one on the sideline, was really impressive. We've talked, through the first few games so much about that Eskildson and Overby had really nice moments, but like in those going from, to use a Campbell-ism, going from a B player to an A player, they weren't there yet, right? Like they were not able to make those high degree of difficulty catches that the best college wide receivers can make. And I thought we saw some of that from Chase Sowell on Saturday. We saw Eskildson drop what would have been a first down on a slant that hit him right in the hands. Like I think Rocco threw a bullet, but you still got to catch that ball. And my point is if you can get a guy be consistent in Chase Sowell to be that guy that's catching that pass, and then to your point, that can take off and go 50 yards, is a huge difference, because if you can get that guy at 1 that gets the attention of 1, and then you get a guy like Brett Eskildson or Xavier Townsend or Dominic Overby, like whoever that is on down the line, their lives get easier because they're getting the second best corner. They're not getting safety help shaded to them. Like everything just gets easier for everybody else if you can get that number 1 guy established, consistent, and productive.
Yeah, and with Sewell too. Just his attitude and his demeanor was pretty impressive. I would say just for him. I mean, you go the first two games with 0 catches, 0 receiving yards, and then you start to get involved in games 3 and 4, but a little dink and dunk, not nothing too crazy yet. But he kind of stayed the course there and has really bought into, Jaden Higgins wasn't Jaden Higgins until midway through or over a month into his first year at Iowa State. Stayed patient and had that type of game. Look, that's big for Iowa State. And now, especially at this crucial point where the offense might have to step things up a little bit more while the defense is figuring itself out, at least in these first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think, too, it is important. I think we saw Rocco Becht trust Chase Sewell, too, right? Like that first one that he's down at the 1-yard line, like that was a dime of a throw by Rocco into a pretty small window there that Sewell had to go get it. I believe the 35-yarder on the sideline was into double coverage that he just dropped in there. Like that is a throw that you don't make as Rocco Becht unless you trust that wide receiver to give you a chance to do what you think he's going to do and then make a play on the ball, right? Like, so I don't think that can be overstated either, that Rocco looks like he trusts Chase Sewell at a level that you probably have to trust a wide receiver to even give him the opportunity to go make those plays. And that trust is hard earned. Like that is not an easy thing to do, especially with a veteran QB like Rocco, who played with 2 NFL wide receivers for his whole career.
Yeah, the other thing with Chase Bell too, like you said, when you look at like a Dom Overby and a Brent Eskildson, they made plays, they had good moments, but there were definitely, put aside like the high difficulty degree catches. I remember Dom Overby had a series of drops. Like it felt like the ball was in his hand and it would have been a big game.
The Iowa
game had 2 or 3 drops there that would have been for big games. But now you have a guy like Chase Will starting to get involved. Doesn't look like he's going to drop those. Doesn't look like he's letting those slip away. He was just making those contested catches, those one-on-one catches. Like he was making big plays and only 4 receptions, but they were big ones, all for at least 19, 20 yards each.
This is the Cyclone Insider Show from the Des Moines Register. I'm Travis Hines. He's Eugene Rapay, coming to you ahead of Iowa State's game Saturday on the road in Cincinnati against the, 3-1 Bearcats?
3-1.
3-1 Bearcats. Iowa State opened as a 2.5 point favorite in this game. Now, last I checked, a 1.5 point dog. That's interesting. I mean, I have not been super high on Cincinnati really at all since they've joined the Big 12. But it does seem like they have things now pointed in the right direction after, in my opinion, floundering a little bit in the first 2 years. Because, you can't overstate how hard it is to go from the AAC to the Big 12 with that, in terms of your players, your infrastructure, just your day-to-day logistics. It is a very difficult ask, and it does seem like in year 3, Scott Satterfield at least has them off to a good start, and now they're favored against the top 15 opponent at home. I think Brendan Sorsby is probably the key here for Cincinnati. Dante Corleone, was he questionable or probable on that availability report?
I'd have to double check, but I remember he was questionable kind of this week. But we'll see.
I mean, he's a difference maker up front in the defensive line. So I think Cincinnati does have some dudes here to make this difficult for Iowa State. I mean, I tend to think Iowa State will win, but this is a trickier game, I think, than I would have anticipated a month or 2 ago.
Just double checking. Dante Corleone is questionable. Is officially questionable. But yeah, Cincinnati, I watched their first game against Nebraska and just felt completely underwhelmed. Like, this team is not going to take another step forward. There's no way. I mean, Brendan Sorsby in that game only threw for about 61 passing yards. It wasn't pretty. They lost. But then since then, it's like, oh, wow, where's this Brendan Sorsby coming from? They've won 3 straight. They opened my eyes when that went over Kansas. I had to, go back once I saw that they won 37-34. And they did so while racking up 603 yards of total offense. And then Brendan Sorsby threw for 388 passing yards against Kansas, and he also ran for another 52. So another dual threat mobile quarterback that Iowa State's defense is going to have to worry about. But those are eye-popping numbers. Those are impressive numbers. I remember last year just watching Sorsby, not feeling too impressed. Yeah, he was productive for Cincinnati, and he's one of the, he helps the theme of the standout returning quarterbacks in this quarterback-heavy Big 12 conference. But the way that he's played the last 3 games has definitely shown many signs of improvement. And Cincinnati is just overall upward trajectories all starts with him.
Yeah, and I think, too, when you're talking about a mobile quarterback that can throw on the run like Sorsby can, like, to go back to what we originally started talking about, is there anything that, like, tests a defensive secondary like that? Like, you're defending for longer and in a way where, all hell breaks loose. It's chaos. Guys break off their routes. The quarterback can run, can throw. That makes for life difficult for a secondary, I think. So that compounds Iowa State's personnel issues, I think, on that side of the ball.
Yeah, just being able to switch from, dropping back, and then all of a sudden you need to scramble after this guy, pursue Sorsby. And the linebackers, that'll help too. I mean, they've gotten more healthy now with John Klosterman and Carson Willich being back. So that'll help in that area of the defense. But nothing puts more stress than a dual threat quarterback. And we've seen Iowa State struggle before containing them or handling them. They did a great job against Rapay last week, which is a positive sign. But then that also they did that with Johnson Williams playing for about 3 3/4 of the game. How's it going to look when Trey Bell, who has played well as cornerback number 2, when now he's cornerback number 1, and then you fill in the rest of the ranks from there?
Yeah, and you mentioned Willick being back. I think that's really big for Iowa State because it felt like, I think we talked about it last week, like Ebel and Bacon are hardly leaving the field anymore. It's that third spot where they've been rotating guys and they've had issues there. Like the guys that they've had in there have at times had trouble. And I think having Carson in there solidifies that and makes that position more consistent going forward, where you're not asking Bo Goodwin to play a huge amount of snaps. Cale Brzezina, has battled injury, and now, Campbell mentioned he kind of is on the outs of the linebacker rotation. What did we say? He only played like 5 snaps or something?
Yeah, only
on Saturday.
Crazy.
So it's they've had trouble with that spot, and I think getting Willick back is probably being under-discussed because they've lost Jontez Williams. Like, you'd rather have them both in there, obviously. But to at least have one, I think, does help Iowa State's defense, rather significantly. The interesting thing, too, about this game, when I was doing my extensive research on it, Rocco's won 9 of 10 on the road, 9 of his last 10 after starting 0-2 on the road. Like, do road games not matter anymore? Like, what the hell's going on? That's incredible in college football. Like, that's mostly Big 12 games. It's Big 12 games and Arkansas State. That's kind of incredible that they've been that good on the road and not nails at home, I guess.
I think it's just the Rocco Beck effect. I mean, when a lot of these games too are close, and for some reason when it's a fourth quarter and Rocco Beck can see that it's a close game and they're behind, he just takes his game into another gear and helps win things. But having a quarterback like that, I mean, especially like I said, going into the Kansas State game, that's a guy that in a close game I have complete trust in the fourth quarter, or to go and make something happen in a tight situation like that. And that definitely helps when you're navigating conference play and all these tough games. But 9 out of 10, though, that is very impressive.
Especially after your first one, you lose to Ohio on the road, and then you go and get absolutely waxed in Norman by Oklahoma, and then you come out and you're unbeatable at moments. Or on the road, excuse me. It's tough. And the one loss was at Arrowhead, when the defense, like you or I probably could have started at linebacker at that point. They were so banged up. So what a superpower to have as a football team. Like, that is probably under-discussed in Iowa State's rise here the last few years, because if you want to be a championship level, a Big 12 championship level team, like, the real differentiator is winning road games, right? Like, you have to serve court at home. Like, we all know that. But then, like, the ability to go win road games is huge. Unlike what we talked about Saturday, like beating the brains out of Arizona, like a middle-tier Big 12 team at home, like, that doesn't show that you're awesome, but it shows you're better than that, right? Like, so you're better than the middle, and we don't know you're awesome. That means you're pretty good. Now, if you can go beat a good, slightly above average, however you want to talk Cincinnati on the road, like, again, that goes, you go from here's average. You've already shown you're here. Now you go do that on the road. You're up here and like really damn good / great, at least in terms of the context of the Big 12, is within sight. And I think it's a reasonable thing to talk about at this point if they're able to win this game. And then they got to turn around and do it again next week at Colorado, which makes it all the more important for them to be able to handle the environment, to handle the logistics and the routine of being on the road and not relying on your home fans and environment to carry the day. And obviously Iowa State has been excellent at that. And I do think it's also, I'm ranting here now, but I'm thinking as I'm speaking, which you're supposed to usually think before you speak. So we'll see where the hell this goes. But when you win road games like that, in the way that Iowa State does, which is steady play, not getting rattled, even when, the odds are against you, the environment's against you, to me, that screams professionalism. Like guys taking this as a job, taking it seriously and not riding an emotional roller coaster. And it reminds me of the best Fred Hoiberg teams at Iowa State. Like, I think that is under-discussed about Fred's teams having success, is that those guys approached it as pros, day in and day out, in terms of what they did in the gym and how to get ready for games. And I think we've seen TJ's teams re-embrace that in a little bit different way, because he's not putting guys in the NBA like a lot of those Fred guys did. But like these guys learn how to structure a day and take everything one step at a time without getting high, without getting low, in a way, again, like the word that screams to me is professionalism. And I think we saw it last year in that 7-0 start, and then the pull out of the tailspin after the 2 straight losses. And I think we're seeing it this year where they're just putting one foot in front of the other every single day in every single snap. And that's boring and it's not like exciting to talk about, but the results are exciting to talk about and they're fruitful for Iowa State. And I do think like that's a huge reason why we've seen them have the success that they've had the last couple of years. And I go back to even 2020 when that team had all that success, their professionalism was tested because of everything regarding COVID and to stay healthy and to stay ready. And they thrived in that environment, like to the best season, arguably in school history. And I think, again, like that has been a key factor in this success is the professionalism in which these guys, the staff, and certainly the players, I think are like first among here, approach their jobs of playing college football.
No doubt about that. I only have one season of reference before this, but just compared to where they were at this point last year, approaching being undefeated now versus back then, felt like back then, or last year rather, they were still kind of going through it. They were still kind of learning how to win or doing what they needed to do to kind of elevate that standard. And now here they are now after achieving that 11-win season. I don't want to say it's like they know what to do, but there's definitely a greater comfortability in their process and what they do in preparation for games and what they need to do in order to keep the win streak going. I wasn't sure for a second there where you were going to take the basketball crossover, but I might as well do one myself. I don't know how you feel when the sports media or just analysts, I feel like sometimes they fall a little bit too in love with the quote-unquote the gritty guy, the leader, the intangibles, or just a guy who's a winner. And I feel like sometimes it's just like, okay, you don't need to upsell me on this guy who's been there forever. And yeah, the team wins, but he doesn't have the flashy stats or anything like that. But with Rocco Becht, I completely buy into that. I feel like I saw ESPN release the list of their top college quarterbacks, and he came in at like 25th and then 5th in the Big 12. And I thought that was a total travesty. I mean, the guy has played pretty great baseball, pretty great football. Doesn't really turn the ball over. I mean, he did turn the ball over against Arizona after he got a little dinged up there. And then before that, at Arkansas State, it was off the Ben Bramer's hands, ball that he normally would have caught. But his stats might not be the flashiest, but when it's the fourth quarter, when it's the second half, complete confidence in that guy. And just the way that Iowa State's offense rallies around him, and even the defense too. Sometimes when they go, it's an extension of the coaching staff. I've heard that many times before, but with Rocco Becht, I actually believe it. Like the way that when he sets foot on the field, it's just a complete there's an aura about him and the way that people rally around him that you just trust in what they're doing, and you can see that he really makes a difference. Granted, everyone does their role and everyone plays a part in that professional aspect, but I feel like Rocco Beck really sets the tone with him in the huddle and just whenever he has the ball in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can, again, like the Brock Purdy comparisons are probably too easy and a little lazy. But I also think like a big part of Brock's success is that he fit very perfectly. You can fit differing degrees of perfect, apparently. He fit perfectly into the mold of quarterback that Campbell wants. And that is the gamer, the efficient, like good arm, doesn't have to have like off the charts measurables or incredible athleticism, but has to have a high IQ, has to be a student of the game, has to be able to make throws, has to be able to move his feet and get out of the pocket, and has to be a leader that makes other people around him better and want to follow him. And like, again, those guys fit that mold. And when you hear it so often where it again becomes tiresome about alignment all the way down. But when it clicks, like, man, it's powerful. Right? The alignment between what Campbell wants his offense to do, what he wants his quarterback to do, and the things that Rocco Beck is capable of and good at. I mean, that's a straight line alignment there. And that is a huge part of the success here, to where I don't know. I mean, Rocco is obviously really talented. Is he a better quarterback in all but like maybe? I mean, it's hard to say because if he goes to Ohio State and he's throwing to Jeremiah Smith, he's probably a better quarterback. Like in terms of like the job description and the applicant's skill set, like there's not much of a better fit than these two. And again, that is a huge reason for Iowa State's success over the last 2.5 seasons. This is the Cyclone Insider Show from the Des Moines Register. He's Eugene. I'm Travis, talking all things Iowa State sports. We don't have a lot of basketball to discuss, Eugene, although I did manage to rope in 10 or 12-year-old teams into this conversation earlier with my Hoiberg analogy there. So I think we'll just stick with football. I mean, I think we've talked a lot of defense, but you wanted to talk a little bit about the defensive line, and I think there's some interesting things happening there, and it's going to be heightened with the struggle or with the potential issues they've got on the back end, to where that defensive line is probably going to have to pull more than its fair share.
Yeah, and just with the talk of them just trying to pressure the quarterback or set the tone in the trenches, all that's going to be magnified now, especially with the secondary being compromised. But Dominic Orange, he's probable for Saturday, so you're optimistic about his prospects. But slowly brewing, I've been pretty impressed with some of the other guys that have been coming in beyond the starters. Like J.J. Gilbert has been quietly putting together very productive first few games, and then Trey Verdon has flashed some moments as well. Like these young guys are starting to come along, and it's coming at a great time. But J.J. Gilbert, he's really impressed me. He's someone that they were high on during spring ball. It's one of those like, all right, I'll need to see it to believe it. Like you have Dominic Orange, you have all these, you have Tomatoa McDonough, you have Ike Eziagu, you have these veterans. It sounds like you want to lean on these veterans a lot, but J.J. Gilbert, in the moments that he's been able to get in the game, he's been impactful and pressuring the quarterback and getting those quarterback hurries.
Yeah, and I think, again, I don't think McDonough was on the availability report Wednesday, but he was really relegated to, I think, almost exclusively third down or at least passing situations on Saturday against Arizona. And he's obviously been the guy that's made the biggest impact on the edge. But I think Gilbert is super interesting as a young guy. Still not generating a ton of pass rush, though. That is Ike Eziagu, not producing the hurries, the sacks that you'd want from your starting defensive end. It's still early, and how many games are we even, really gonna throw in here as being great sample sizes when you got South Dakota, you got Arkansas State, you got the weird deal in week 0 with Ireland. So I think the test is still very much being taken. We don't have final grades yet, but for the second or third year in a row, kind of waiting for that group to figure something out and start making a real impact in the pass rush. And like maybe we are expecting too much, or Iowa State fans are spoiled because they watched Jaquan Bailey and Will McDonald for like the better part of the decade absolutely wreck quarterbacks. And now you're not getting that. And it does feel like, man, that is just a missing piece that will go take a defense from where they are up to another level or two.
Yeah, it was Eziagu too. It was interesting how he's being used at times against Arizona. Quarterback spy on the defensive end spot. Like, whew, that's like out of the box. But yeah, you'd like to see more production up front. The younger guys, I've been pleased with the moments that they've had. Just, another guy too from Moore coming in there. Like, I feel like when was the last time we saw Zamir Hawk? Like, where has he been? But they seem to really like these younger defensive linemen, and so far they've been showing some moments. But overall, everyone's going to really need to step up the workload here, or step up their intensity, especially with what they got to deal with now on defense.
Yeah, and I think like on the other side too, like we talked about so well, and the passing game being like, okay, if you got to go score 49, maybe they can go do that. Or at least you have more belief in it now than you did when we were having this conversation a week ago. But the flip side of that is like, do you then try, like, would Campbell's demeanor would make me think he'd rather just run the football 55 times if they had to offset the defense? Like, we've seen them go the other way. Like, I think of the Liberty Bowl against Memphis a couple of years ago, like talking to Matt after that, like he even was frustrated, I think, with himself that they didn't go to the air quicker and say, like, we're in a shootout, let's go. It kind of took him, I think, in the middle of the second quarter to realize that and start acting upon it. But if you want to try to run the football and slow the game down and shorten the game, can Iowa State run the ball effectively enough to do that? I don't know. The running game has been underwhelming.
Very on and off. Yeah. Very, very spotty. I don't know if they can. It's been weird. It's been a weird area of the game.
Yeah, they haven't been terrible. It's just been like kind of waiting around for them to have the big moments. And like they've had like Chase, Carson Hansen and Abu Sama have both had moments. And maybe that's all that they're looking for. Like, Brian Kelly got really mad at a reporter for saying they couldn't run the football. Like, you only need one, which I guess is an argument. I would say consistently getting 4 to 6 to 7 yards on a carry is better than getting 1 55-yarder. But like the way that we've seen Iowa State be successful running the ball, it has been in significant chunk home run. Like it has been, it's not no gain, 35 yards. Like they've had to be able to consistently move the ball with 2 NFL running backs, which again, you got to factor in here. But it just has not, the running game does not seem to be coming easy for Iowa State right now.
Yeah, especially when you look at the second half of last year with Carson Hansen just really started to take over. You would have thought with both those guys that they would just kind of explode or be a 1-2 punch, and they do move the ball, but it's like the expectation of what you thought it would be. Like right now, it's probably average, but just with those 2 guys in the backfield, you thought that maybe they would get way more. But yeah, it's just been a very, like sometimes you think that they're turning the corner, and then other times it's like, did they get, like we haven't seen Carson Hansen in a while, or when did Abu Sama last get a carry? Like it's been very spotty.
And I think it is important to, like, the expectations have changed, right? Like the way that we're talking about this football team, the offense, the defense is at a higher standard because they've already set a high standard over the course of, however many years you want to go back. And certainly last year with 11 wins and a lot of guys back, and with the new Big 12 and the way that this all sets up, when you're talking about winning a Big 12 championship, what you have to do to get there is different than hoping to get there or to win 8 or 9 games and go to the Liberty Bowl as being like, hey, that's great. Like 8 or 9 wins in a Liberty Bowl for this team is going to feel like a massive disappointment, right? So you have to do more than what that took. And the more is a higher expectation and like guys like us being like, oh, 5-0, that's great. But how's your running game? Like there is just a different level of analysis and expectation, I think, when they've had the success that they've had and when they have the goals and expectations that they have here. So I think that's an important piece to remember here. Like when we're talking about the things that they have to solve, we're talking about it in relation of not just winning a football game, it's winning a lot of football games and then winning the most important football games and the toughest football games going forward. So I think, again, like that's an important piece to remember. And when I'm giving lectures on expectations and grading on a curve, that probably means the show should be over. What do you think?
Let's wrap it up.
He's Eugene Rapay. I am Travis Hines. This has been the Cyclone Insider Show from the Des Moines Register. Be sure to check out DesMoinesRegister.com all week for Iowa State coverage. I will be in Cincinnati covering the game. Eugene will be holding it back in Des Moines. So be sure to check out everything we've got. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll check you next time.